Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. This morning we are thankful that we can come and worship our Creator in spirit and in truth. And so we would like to look at the subject this morning entitled The Quintessence of Prophecy. The Quintessence of Prophecy. In the times gone past, the sages have concluded that there are four essences in life: water, fire, earth, and air. Four essences. But the essence that brings these essences together, the more superlative form, is called the quintessence. And so all these things that were present on the earth at creation, but the earth was still in darkness, and Yah said, "Let light come forth," and light came. And this morning we pray that light will come to our understanding as we look at the quintessence of prophecy. So join me in the book of HOSEA, which is the book of Revelation, and we will take the 19th portion and we will look at that and try to analyze it and see if we can make sense of what Yohanan here has sent to us by way of his letter that was given to him by the angel, and that was given to the angel by YAHSHUA. Chapter 19 of the book of HOSEA, that's the book of Revelation. And the word here reads, "After these things I heard, as it were, a loud voice of a great multitude in heaven saying, Alleluia." That's the highest praise you can give. Alleluia. "The salvation and the glory of the power of our Elohim, because true and righteous are his judgments, because he hath judged the great harlot, who indeed corrupted the earth with her lewdness, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand." Now let's hold it there, because what we're seeing here, John writes, after these things. After what things? When we read Revelation 16, 17, and 18, we are seeing in chapter 16, 13, and 14, three spirits like frogs: the dragon, the false prophet, and the beast. And in chapter 17, we're seeing this harlot, this woman who corrupts the whole earth. And all the kings and the merchants followed her, and she's there riding the beast, that beast of Revelation chapter 13. She's riding the beast. And the false prophet there, who is depicted in verse 11, reading on from chapter 13, who causes the whole earth to be deceived. So all these groups of people and the works that they perform is dealt with, because Yah is now judging them, or has judged them, and is now destroying them, and those in heaven are rejoicing. So Revelation 19 gives us a narrative response to the events that occurred in these chapters. People are being killed and people are being destroyed, and those in heaven are shouting, Hallelujah. Now, you don't often see that in scriptures where someone is being destroyed and others are rejoicing. But this is the conclusion. This is the total coming together of that evil that started back in Genesis. This is the end of the great controversy between good and evil. This is the conclusion of it. This is the summit point. And so they are rejoicing. And the word says, because this righteousness is true, the righteousness of Yeshua. And a second time have they said, Hallelujah. Are you with me? And her smoke ascended upon ages of ages, forever and ever. And the 24 elders and the 4 living creatures fell down and did homage, they paid respect unto Yahweh, who sitteth upon the throne, saying, Hallelujah. Notice, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. 3 times. Holy, 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 because as the sages have made us understand, there 3 in 1, Father, Son, and the Ruach. So 3 times, hallelujah. Greatest honor, because the conclusion of this great controversy is now taking place, and they're rejoicing. Verse 7, skip with me there. Let us rejoice and exalt and give glory unto him, because the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife has made herself ready. And it hath been given unto her that she should be arrayed in fine linen, bright, pure, for in fine linen is the righteous act of the saints. So linen garment here symbolizes righteousness, because linen comes from flax. And he said unto me, verse 9, right happy they who unto the marriage supper of the Lamb have been bidden. And he said unto me, these words are true words of Yahweh. Now, Yohanan, having heard all this and hear the responses coming from the beings in heaven, he gets into the mood. He's motivated by this, and he says, and I fell at his feet to do homage. And he had said unto me, see thou do it not. A fellow servant am I of thee and of the brethren who have the witness of Yeshua. Unto Yahweh do homage, for the witness of Yeshua is the spirit of prophecy. The witness of Yeshua is the quintessence of prophecy. There are many prophecies. And the people have read this verse, read the passage, and they have, some of them, consigned verse 10 to an individual, to a book. When they say the spirit of prophecy, they mean a book that someone has written somewhere. The context within which we look at this is that he's letting us know there have been a whole cloud of witnesses who have written about the one subject that is in the word. There's one subject, but they've all written about him in different ways. That's Yeshua. He's the subject. but his testimony, because the verse here points to a court scene, and it is a court scene because it's a time of judgment when he's judging the whore and the beast and the dragon himself and destroying them, and everybody shouting hallelujah. It's a court scene. So his witness is the quintessence of all the other witnesses that have come forth. We need to understand that. That's why Yeshua made it clear that we ought to search the scriptures, search them, because in them you think you have life, but these are they that testify of me. They're witnesses. The scriptures, they testify of Yeshua. Because what he has come to do now for us as we read the narratives in this passage is that he is the kinsman redeemer. We need to understand that Yeshua is the kinsman redeemer, and the kinsman redeemer, he has two roles. He has two roles. He redeems his family, but he's also the avenger of blood. He's the avenger of blood. And we will see that as we look into the word, and it unfolds even onto our pineal gland today, because we need to understand what is happening. So turn with me to HOSEA. HOSEA, that prophet who himself was married to a harlot, Gomer. And we're going to read verse 14 and 15. For I will be unto Ephraim as a lion. Did you hear me? And as a young lion to the house of Judah. I, even I, will tear and go away. I will take away, and none shall rescue him. I will go and return to my place. I will do what? I will go and return to my place till they acknowledge their offense, till they acknowledge their guilt. He wants you to know that. And seek my face. In their affliction, they will seek me early. And so the question must be asked, what offense is that? What guilt is it that they must acknowledge before he comes? He says, I am going back to where I came from. And we saw that in the book of Acts, that he ascended while the disciples were looking on. And he says, the angel said to them, ye men of Galilee, why standeth ye gazing at him? The same way you see him go up, he will come back down. And Zechariah captures that scene in chapter 14, that when he comes, his feet touches the ground and he comes to reign. So he's saying, I'm going away. I'm going away. And I won't come back until they acknowledge their guilt. I won't do that. So I would like you to join me in the book of Proverbs now, just to consolidate that thought and to bring even more perspicuity to the thought. So Proverbs chapter 7. And we're reading here from verse 18. Come, let us take our fill of endearments until morning. Let us delight ourselves with caresses. For the husband is not in his house. He hath gone on a journey far away, and he has taken with him a bag of silver, hath he taken in his hand. On the day of the full moon will he enter his house. On the day appointed, he will come back. We just read in Hosea chapter 5 and verse 15 that he himself said, I've gone away, I'm going away, and I'm not coming back until they acknowledge their guilt, their offense. We want to know what offense that is. And so we read also in Proverbs 7 that he's gone away and he's taken some money with him, and he's not coming back until the full moon. Are you with me? He's not coming back until the day appointed. Now, if you read that, perhaps you may pass that off as something trivial. You ought not to do that. Because here, what we're dealing with is the season of tabernacles. The season of tabernacles. Understand. Remember, we just read in Revelation chapter 19 that all the beings in heaven were rejoicing at the destruction of the harlot woman. We read that. And so when we read in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3, Paul wants us to know that we're not to worry about the coming of Yeshua, because that day will not come until there's a falling away. There's an apostasy taking place in the church, and the man of sin will reveal himself, who opposes all that relates to Yah. And in the same 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, 16 and 17, we are told that when he comes, that those who died in Yeshua will raise first, and those who are alive will be caught up to meet him in the air. The writer here of Proverbs wants you to know that's the season of tabernacle, because on the first day of the 7th month, that's the Feast of Trumpet. And that's when the trumps will sound. And those who are dead in Yeshua will be raised first, and those who are alive will be caught up to meet him in the air. And don't take your imagination any further than that. He says, you meet him in the air. You're not going to heaven. According to John 3:30, no one goes to heaven except he who comes. And it is he who came from heaven that's gone back. He says, I'm not coming back until the full moon. The full moon, therefore, is going to be on the 15th day of the 7th month, which is going to be the start of the week or the season of tabernacle. So when you read that, you need to understand that the point is that Yeshua is saying that I am the quintessence of prophecy. When I come, I will bring together in a format and collate all the prophecies that relate to me, and you who have the spirit of prophecy, you will understand it. It's not consigned to a book. You can't put a pattern on it. The spirit of prophecy is not a book. It is what the prophets were given, and Yeshua being the quintessence of all that, because they testify of him. That's what we mean by the gift of prophecy. So come with me now to the book of Isaiah, and we will look at chapter 61, the book of Isaiah, chapter 61. The spirit of my master, Yahweh, is upon me, because Yahweh hath anointed me to tell good tidings to the oppressed. hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim the captives liberty, to them who are bound, the opening of the prison, to proclaim the year of acceptance of Yahweh and the day of avenging the Elohim, to comfort all our mourning. I'm going to read that again because I don't want you to miss the essence of it. Earlier, I made a point that this Goel, that's Goel, that's the kinsman redeemer. He has two roles. He is the redeemer of his friends, of his family. But he's also the avenger of blood to the enemy. He's a lamb and he's a lion. He's the Lion of Judah. So he protects Judah. But to those who are his enemy, he rips them apart. And that's what you saw and listened to in chapter 19 earlier, when those in heaven, the angels, were saying hallelujah. And when John heard that, John wanted to join and worship the angel, and John was told, don't do it. I'm just rejoicing as a fellow like you. When you worship Yah. Because, his testimony is what? Revelation 19:10 is a gift of prophecy. Are you with me? And so Isaiah here is saying, the spirit of my master, Yahweh, is upon me. Yahweh has anointed me. He's speaking here of whom? Of Yeshua. It's a prophecy. And you're going to see how it fulfills later on. Is upon me to tell the good tidings to the oppressed. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted and to claim the captives, give them liberty, who are bound, and to open the prisons. Let them out. Some of us are prisoned not in penitentiary, but in the penitentiary of false religion, false doctrine, false teaching, in politics. They put us in their penitentiaries, and they hold us captive by their false teaching. Yah said, I'm sending the Ruach to liberate you from that. Sometimes the churches have become like prisons to us with their teaching, and he's saying, I'm coming to liberate you. And then the angels, they say, hallelujah. Even when we can't even muster a amen in the church, the angels are shouting, hallelujah. But I don't want you to miss this point. He says, I am coming on the day to avenge. I said, the kinsman redeemer, he protects his family, but he avenges the enemy. So this is the prophecy. So let's go and see how it was dealt with in Dr. Luke. Dr. Luke, and you come with me to chapter 4 of Dr. Luke. And you know the story very well here. Let's start from verse 1. And he says, and Yeshua, full of the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, returned from the Jordan and was led in the Spirit in the desert. Who led him in the Spirit? The Ruach. And he was there 40 days being tempted by the adversary, and he did not eat anything in those days. And when they were concluded, he hungered. He was there in the wilderness for 40 days. Now, I don't want to leave you ignorant, because what you've got to understand here, when we read Leviticus chapter 16, and we read about the scapegoat, and we read about the atonement, this is the enactment of that. You've got to understand that. I have heard it said quite loosely and even frivolously that the scapegoat is Satan. Now, the assumption there is that Satan plays a role in your atonement. That's what they're saying. But here it is that Yeshua, playing the role of the scapegoat, is sent out into the wilderness, and he's brought by a strong man, the strongest of men, here in the person of the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, to be tempted. In fact, Isaiah said that he took away our sins. All our iniquities were put on Yeshua, not on Satan, not on a Satan. So we need to understand the prophecy. We need to understand that this is talking about the quintessence of prophecy, that he led out into the wilderness for 40 days and was tempted. And you will understand why he likened himself to Jonah, because he went out into the wilderness on the first day of Elul. That's the 6th month of the Hebrew year. And he stayed 40 days. So 40 days from the first day of Elul will take us to the 10th day of the 7th month, which is the day of Yom Kippur, the day of judgment. And notice something, it's only on the day of judgment that the day of Jubilee could be proclaimed. So he read on that day. Let's read. It says, and the adversary said to him, if thou art Yahweh's son, speak unto this stone that it become bread. Speak. Because, people like signs. Often you speak to people about Yah, and they say, we want proof. We want proof. Now, if you have all proof and no faith, it still doesn't benefit you at all, because it's impossible to please Yah without faith. So even if you have all the proofs, and Yah did give them proof by miracles, healing lepers, the dumb was able to speak, and those who were blind, they were able to see, and yet they were not seeing because they were not looking with their pineal gland. And so here he's saying, the adversary asked him to make bread out of stone, and he responded by saying, man shall not live by bread alone, but by what? Every word that comes out of Yah's mouth. So come with me to verse 13, because we're dealing with the quintessence of prophecy, the gift of prophecy. So we've got to understand what the scripture is saying and what heaven intends for us to know. And having concluded every temptation, the adversary departed from him until a fitting season. And Yeshua, did you get that though? Did you get until a fitting season? He's coming back, and he would return when? At Passover, to help crucify him. That's the fitting season. The word here is the appointed time. The days that are appointed, and the feast day was the day of Passover, the 14th day of the first month of Nisan. So we need to understand that as we read through the word. And let me read it again. And having concluded every temptation, the adversary departed from him until a fitting season, and Yeshua returned into the power of the Ruach in Galilee, and a report went out among the whole of the region concerning him. And he began teaching in their synagogue, being glorified by all. And he came into Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and entered according to the custom on the Sabbath day, on the 7th day, a day like today, into the synagogue, and stood up to read. And there was handed to him a scroll of the prophet Isaiah. Unfolding the scroll, he found the place where it was written. So I just read Isaiah 61. So I'm taking now to Luke. New Testament is revealing what was concealed in the Old Testament. Understand that. So the Spirit of Yahweh upon me, because he hath anointed me to tell glad tidings unto the destitute. He had sent me forth to proclaim to captives a release, and to the blind a recovering of sight, to send away the crushed with a release, to proclaim the welcome year of Yahweh. So on that day, according to Luke chapter 4, he went into the temple and he read from the book of Isaiah chapter 61. But he stopped midway through. He stopped midway through. And so we need to understand why this was. Because when he came the first time, he did not come to avenge. He did not come to avenge. He came to set the captives free. That's what he came to do. But let's refresh ourselves if we go back to Isaiah 61. It says that the Spirit of Yah came upon me, because Yahweh hath anointed me to tell good tidings to the oppressed, sent me to bind up the brokenhearted and to proclaim the captive liberty to them who are bound, the opening of the prison, to open the prison for those who are in prison, not necessarily physical prison, but psychologically and social and emotional prison. I want to liberate them. Like the woman who had an issue of blood for 12 years, she was in prison. She was imprisoned by her circumstances. And he came and she touched the very hem, the zitzit of his garment, and she was released from the prison of her circumstances. So it's that kind of prison also. And to proclaim the year of acceptance of Yahweh and the day of vengeance. Now in Luke chapter 4, he doesn't talk about vengeance because he didn't come to avenge. But now when we read in Revelation chapter 19, we see that's the year of vengeance. Are you with me? So the prophecy there is being revealed, being enacted. The quintessence now is acting out that was written of him. He said, I have come not to destroy, according to Matthew 5:17-19, I have not come to destroy what the prophets wrote of me, but I have come to make them more visible to you. I have come to fulfill them. I have come to magnify the law. That's what I've come to do. I have not come to destroy them. So when people say that, okay, they have been fulfilled, yes, they have been fulfilled, but it doesn't mean done away with. He's saying, now that I've fulfilled it and I've shown you how it should be kept, you go and do it. That's what he's saying. So you now have the gift of prophecy is revealed to you because the New Testament revealed that which was concealed in the Old Testament, and you're seeing it. He has come and he has revealed it to you, and you said, oh, it has been fulfilled, so it is stopped. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. You could be had for libel, defamation of character, because that's not what he said. He says, think it not that I have come to destroy what Moses and the prophets wrote of me. I have come to fulfill it so you can know the path through which you ought to walk. That's what he's saying. So come with me also to Isaiah 63, Isaiah chapter 63. So who is this coming in from Edom with bright red garments from Bozrah? Another name for Bozrah is Petra. Petra. And you understand now when you link this verse with chapter 16 of Matthew, when Yeshua in Philippi, Caesarea Philippi, at the foot of Mount Hermon, which is where the fallen angels came and dwell according to the book of Enoch, and he asked the question, well, who do men say I am? And they juggled some ideas together. Some say you're the prophet, some say you're Isaiah, some say you're Jeremiah, some say you're John the Baptist. But he said, you're my family. You ought to know. Tell me, who do you say I am? And Peter, at that moment in time, indwelled with the Ruach, said, you are the Messiah, the Son of the Most High. And he made it known that flesh and blood did not reveal that to you. You did not learn that in the temple in Jerusalem, Peter. You did not learn that in the church. The Ruach spoke to you and let you know that. And so the point I really want to make, he said, Peter, Petros versus Petra. One is pebble and one is stone. On this, I built my what? My assembly, and the gates of Gehenna, the gates of hell, will not stop it. So who is this coming from? Bozrah. It's coming from Jordan. That's where it is. This made splendid in his raiment, marching on in the greatness of his strength. I speak in righteous, mighty to save. What is he doing? He's speaking in righteousness, and he is mighty to save. Wherefore is there red on thy raiment, and thy garments as one treading the wine trough or the wine press, it says in some Bibles. And what is happening here? Who is being referred to here? None other than Yeshua. Why? It's the day of vengeance. He has come to avenge his enemy because, as I indicated, he's not only the kinsman redeemer for his family, but he's avenging the enemy who has troubled his family all along. He's avenging. And so the question is being asked, why is your garment so red? Now understand, Edom is Esau, and Esau means red. Understand that. And why is your garment so red? Remember, his garment is linen, his righteousness is pure. But because he's annihilating the enemy, the blood is splashed up on his garment, and that's why it has all the red. It's not his own blood, it's their blood, because his blood was already spilled at Calvary for the sins of you and I. We've got to understand that. And so just think of it. Perhaps it doesn't mean much to this contemporary generation, but back then when you want grape juice, you would tread up on the grapes and get the juice out. So he's treading the, this is symbolic here. The winepress have I trodden alone, and of the peoples there was no man with me, so I trod them down in mine anger. It's not very often you see a lamb getting angry. People have a tendency to present Yeshua as this meek and mild, but this lamb is now angry with his enemy, because he's a lion now of Judah, and he's tearing them apart. He's the avenger of blood. Are you with me? He's the avenger of blood. And so he's indignant now. Mine indignation and their lifeblood be sprinkled my garments and all mine apparel I defy. Now, his righteousness is pure, but ours, according to Isaiah in chapter 64, in verse 6, it says it is like filthy rags. Are you with me? Is it all the righteousness that you and I have? It's like filthy rags. But that's King James being very polite and using language to tone down what Isaiah is saying. Isaiah is saying, your righteousness and my righteousness is like menstrual cloth. That's what Isaiah is saying. He's being graphic. And we ought not to take away from the robustness of the language here used by the prophet. That's what he wants you to know, that he has come to avenge. And so the man, the woman, the person who thinks that they're going to get away with what they have done, they better think again. He said, I'm going to redeem my family. I'm going to seal them according to Revelation chapter 7. I'm going to make sure that when the winds of strife come, it doesn't touch them. It doesn't affect them. I will put them in a contemporary Zor, even as I put my people before. I will do that. I will find a place to put them like I put Lot. I will find a place to put them like I put the ancient children of Israel. I will do that. So the plagues will not affect them. So unto them I am a kinsman redeemer, but unto their enemy I'm an avenger of blood. I'm an avenger of blood. And so that intrigues me somewhat. It intrigues me somewhat, and I'll tell you why. Last week, we talked about the harlot of Revelation chapter 17, and we saw her riding the beast, and we referred to her in the language of Lady Godiva. You remember that? And we said she was the equestrian woman riding the beast. Now, last week was the 7th day of Tammuz. And we also talked about Tammuz because we use that picture of Tammuz in Ezekiel chapter 8 to give us an understanding of what it means when Babylon falls and the people were weeping for Tammuz, the son of Nimrod. We did that. And so last week was the 7th day of the 4th month of what? The Hebrew calendar, Tammuz. Now, it was interesting to me, perhaps more so than a number of other people. And I'm going to read for you Leviticus chapter 8. Come with me there, please. And we will look at verse 22. There was brought near the second ram, the ram of installation, and Aaron and his son leaned their hands upon the head of the ram, and it was slain, and Moses took the blood thereof and put upon the tip of Aaron's right ear, and upon the thumb of his right, and upon the great toe of his right foot. Did you get me? What am I saying? What am I saying? Come with me again also to Leviticus chapter 14 and verse 17. And of the rest of the oil that is in the hand shall the priest put up on the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the blood of the trespass offering. The point here being made that when Aaron was to be inaugurated into office, Moses would take some of the blood and put on his right ear. It was while we were in Sabbath last week, we realized that there was an incident that took place during the campaign of politics. And we're made to understand a bullet passed by a former president, and all his right ear was all blooded. And I'm wondering, what does this mean? Is it that he is being inaugurated for something? Because Moses had to take the blood and put on Aaron's right ear for office before he started. But it happened on the day, the seventh day of Tammuz. Because Tammuz, the day of Tammuz, which will be Tuesday the 17th, which would be the 23rd of the Gregorian month, Tuesday that is coming, that's the day of Tammuz. And the day of Tammuz is celebrated because that was the day that the golden calf incident and Moses broke the tablets of stone. And so every 17th day of Tammuz, the people fast. So on Tuesday, it will be fast of Tammuz. And I'm trying to make sense of what is happening. This is happening in the season of Tammuz, but also we're seeing a type of sacrifice that was made for Aaron on the right here. And the people now at the campaign, many of them are wearing a kind of bandage or strap on their ear, and I don't know whether this is a fashion, but I was trying to make sense of it in the word. So the point is, according to Leviticus chapter 8, if you read verses 22 to 20, it's an installation offering. That's what it is, to install someone into office. And I'm wondering whether this is really something prophetic or not. I'm just throwing it out for your consideration. It happened last week, and it happened in the season of Tammuz. And it's just my inquiry trying to ascertain what is going on. And I try to make sense of the whole process, because I believe Uncle Sam is depicted in prophecy. And I start from the Bush, President Bush, should I say. When I see that, it says to me that this is the burning bush. And if it's the burning bush, then there is some people there in the land of Egypt. Egypt, in this sense, means bondage that needs to be released. And it is a time to send a deliverer to them. And as we know, our people, the bronze people, they have been brought to America, and they have been held for an inordinate amount of time in slavery, and have waited for a deliverer. But we're told the deliverer this time is not going to be Moses, he's the avenger of blood. That's the essence of what we're talking about today. Who will avenge for the blood of the slaves that have come here and have labored hard without pay? Who will? It cannot be anybody other than the clan. I didn't say the clansman redeemer. I said the kinsman redeemer. That's what I mean. The kinsman redeemer. He avenges their blood against the enemy, but he redeems them. And so that's what we're dealing with here in Leviticus. So come with me now to the book of Revelation again, and let's dilate this time on chapter 5. Chapter 5. And I saw upon the right hand of him that was sitting up on the throne a scroll written within and on the back sealed of 7 seals. Did you get that? It says, he saw upon his right hand of him that was sitting upon the throne a scroll written within, and on the back seal said, and I saw a mighty messenger proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the scroll and to unloose the seal thereof? And no one was able in heaven or on earth or under the earth to open the scroll or to look thereon. Even if you exhumed Adam, Abraham, Noah, they couldn't open it. That's what he's saying. You see, you got to understand what's happening here. Let me say it again. The earth is Yah and the fullness thereof, and they that dwell in it. The earth was given to Adam to have dominion over it. And it was stolen from Adam. Satan came and deceived him and took it by way of squatters' rights. And Satan has been squatting. And we read in 2 Corinthians 4:4 that he is the God of this earth. He's squatting. But Yeshua here comes in Revelation chapter 5. Are you with me? And he has the title deeds for the land. So he has paid the price and opened the seal for the land, and so the land is in escrow. For those of you who have purchased a house. An escrow is a contractual arrangement in which a third party disburses money or property. A third party. That's why the word says that we are joined here with him. And that's what Revelation chapter 5 is dealing with, that the earth, the land, is in escrow, meaning that he has paid for it, but he has not yet received or occupied the land that he's paid for. It's in escrow. And so let's read on from Revelation 5. And I began to weep, says Yohanan, much, because no one was worthy to open it. I didn't find anyone to open the scroll or to look thereon. And one of the elders said unto me, do not weep. Don't weep, John. Lo, the lion. The what? You notice how he becomes a lion again? He's a lion of what? Judah. The root of Jesse. And if we ought to go back, and we're going to go there in the book of Luke, because when you go there, you see that he comes through Obed and Jesse and Solomon. And so the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and so when you take this verse here and you transport this verb of it over into Matthew chapter 1 and you check the genealogy, you see that one of his ancestors is that very said woman who lived on the wall of Jericho. We call her Rahab, a harlot. Wow. Because she is married to Salmon. And so that harlot was one of the ancestors of Yeshua. But he now becomes a lion. Let's read it again. And one of the elders said unto me, do not weep. Lo, the lion that is of the tribe of Judah, the root of David. And so David is the root, and David is springing up what we would call, in where I come from, little suckers, meaning little plants. That's what we call them. Little branches are coming up, hath overcome to open the scroll and the seventh seal thereof. And I saw in the midst of the throne and of the four living creatures, and in the midst of the elders, a lamb. Did you see that? When he comes to fight, he's a lion, and when he comes to his family, he's a lamb. A lamb slain. Having said, he's letting you know, and he's showing his hand with those nail prints, and he's letting you know, I can open the title deed because I've paid the price, and the price was the blood at my crucifixion. And so he opened his hand as a lamb. John said, I see a lion, but now I see a lamb. He wants us to know that that's the price he paid for us. And so John stops weeping. Of course, he has no more reason to weep. And so we're going to take this passage now and move over to that beautiful book that deals with the kinsman redeemer. Now Naomi had an acquaintance of her husband's, a man of great integrity of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, let me go, I pray thee, to the field and glean ears of corn after him. After him. Now, we know the story, don't we? That these people had left Judah and had gone to the land of Moab. Where did they go? Moab. Because there was famine in the land. There's a famine in the land today, but it's not for bread and water, it is for the word of Yah. And people are jumping from church to church and are searching the internet to find the truth of Yah, but they're not finding it because there's a famine. Amos says there's a famine in the land for the word. And so the physical always comes before the spiritual, but you have to use the physical to understand the spiritual. That's why it's called a type or a shadow of. And so we want to look at chapter 1 so that you can understand chapter 2. And so the word is that they left their home and they went to Moab and they got married. The boys got married to two young ladies and they died. Husband died, and Naomi is now without a husband. And she's telling the young ladies to go back home. And one of them decided that they would go home, and the other one decided that they would not. And so the thing is this, that Ruth decided that she's not going. Now, when you look at it, Ruth represents the church. Understand that. The church must come in to Judah, must come into Israel. Other sheep I have, but they're not of this fold. Ruth is a Moabite. She's not of this fold, but she must come into Judah. Ruth recognizes that. So it's Naomi and Ruth. Ruth says, entreat me not to leave you and to follow after you, because where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people, my people. What did you say, Ruth? You're saying the Jews are going to be your people, you being a Gentile, Ruth? Yeah, because you see, when you read Psalm 87, Psalm says, it doesn't matter where you're born. That man was born there and that man was born there. But as long as you're born in Yeshua, as our sister did last week, they're born in Zion. And that's what Ruth is saying. The kinsman redeemer covers you, and he will deal with the enemies later because he's a avenger of blood. And so Ruth says, don't entreat me, don't force me to leave. I see that your Yah is the true Yah. My people down there where I come from, they worship falsely. And I don't want to go back into there. The church that I go to, they preach false doctrine. They worship on another day other than the seventh day. I don't want that. You know, the people, they deck themselves in all kind of ornaments and they present themselves almost naked before Yah. Ruth says, I don't want that. I want to come with you because I've watched you keenly over the years that I've been with you, and I see how you conduct yourself, and I know that you're the type of person I want to keep friends with. David picks it up, doesn't he? Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the unrighteous. Why? He says, don't stand with them, don't sit with them, don't walk with them. Because their ways are not yours. The unrighteous are not so. They're like the chaff that the wind driveth away. But you're like a tree planted by what? By the rivers of water, and you bring it forth in your season, in all season, you bring forth. And so Ruth said, I'm not going back there. Don't force me. I'm staying with you. So we're in chapter 2 now. And Naomi had an acquaintance of her husband's, a man of great integrity and family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, let me go, I pray thee, to the field and glean here. And you know the story very well. So we better flip over to chapter 4. Now Boaz went up to the gate and sat him down there, and lo, the kinsman passing by, of whom Boaz had spoken. So he said, turn aside and sit down here, such a one. And he turned aside and sat down. Then fetched he 10 men of the elders of the city, and said, sit ye down here. And they sat down. Then said he to the kinsman, the parcel of land that was our brother Elimelech is to be disposed of by Naomi, who had returned out of the country of Moab. She's come back. And things were so bad with Naomi. Naomi said, you better call me Mara, because things were bitter down there. And I thought I would unveil thine here, saying, take it over in presence of such as are here seated, and in presence of the elders of my people. If thou wilt act as a kinsman, act as kinsman. But if thou wilt not so act, only tell me that I may know, for there is none who can set aside as kinsman, but I am after thee. And he said, I will not act as kinsman. So, and he said, I will act as kinsman. Then said Boaz, what day thou takest over the land. This is Revelation 5. We just read that. The day you take over the land, nobody could open the seal in Revelation chapter 5. Yeshua is the quintessence, right? Quintessence of all the kinsman redeemer. That's our subject. The quintessence of prophecy. The day you take over the land from the hand of Naomi, also of Ruth. Not only the land, you've got to cover Ruth. You've got to cover the people too. You've got to redeem her. You've got to redeem the church, the Gentile church, so to speak. She must now come in like Ruth and come into Israel. There is no Gentile church being saved. The church is Israel, says Galatians 3:29. If you being Yeshua, what are you? You're Abraham's seed, and here according to the promise. He only has one flock. So the day you take over that land, also you got to take over Ruth, the Moabitess, wife of the dead. Thus thou take it to raise up the name of the dead upon the inheritance. The man said, no, I can't do that. Boaz says, I'll do it. And he took Ruth and married her. Because all of this, we've got to remember, all of this in Ruth is pointing to that which we're talking about in Matthew 22, the marriage supper of the Lamb. That people from all walks of life, Jew and Gentile, black and white, bronze and indifference, whether you speak English clipped, the Kings, or you speak Hebrew, or you just speak fluent patois, everybody is called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And by the way, there are two marriage suppers. There are two suppers. One for the birds, because those who don't make it to the marriage supper, the birds are invited for their carcasses. Remember that. And so the word is very, very clear that Yeshua is not only the kinsman redeemer, but he's the avenger of blood. And so it always intrigues me, because we know that the bronze people of the land, through the sea lanes of the Ethiopian Ocean, they call the Atlantic Ocean, they have suffered much. Many were thrown overboard. And John Newton wrote about them, amazing grace. How sweet a sound, but I think he should have said amazing race. How did they survive the ordeal or the process of that ordeal? How? And is it not that their blood cries out today, even as Abel's blood cries out? So who will avenge their blood? Who? There has got to be an avenger of blood. And so I was not at all surprised, not at all, in April when we had that moon, that sun, and we had that eclipse that left an X across America over the area of Little Egypt in Illinois. I was not, because Yah is letting us know something. He's letting us know. And why did it happen over Little Egypt in Illinois? Why? A place anciently where there was a famine in Illinois. Why? Something, I believe, is about to happen. Something celestial. Something transcendent. Something that the average eyes cannot see and the average mind cannot contend with. Cannot. Because the word wants you to know that you've got to have understanding of a prophecy. You've got to read the quintessence of prophecy to understand how this thing is going to unfold. How it's going to unfold. And so when I see the blood that was put on the lobe of Aaron's right here, and I saw what happened last week, or I read of it, I asked myself a number of questions, and I will not presume to have the answer to them, but I was just sharing that with you to let you know these are signs that we must not take lightly. Must not take lightly. So the question is, I'm not coming back until they acknowledge their guilt. What is their guilt? What is the guilt? Come with me to Zechariah 9 and verse 9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He is just and having salvation lowly, riding upon a ass and upon a colt, the foal of an ass. It was prophesied that he would come in a ass. The king of Israel would ride a donkey in Israel, and on that day they reject him. They're guilty of that, and led to his crucifixion. Then he said, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, oh, I so wish I could put you under my wing." Eve, you didn't hear me. He said, "I so wish I could put you under my zit, under my wings, as a hen put her chicks. But you did not know the day of your visitation." I would suggest that I don't think America knows the day of its visitation. Having gone away completely from Yah's word, having been dedicated to Yah at its inception, and have gradually moved away, doesn't know the day of its visitation, doesn't know at all. And the word says that in that day, Zechariah 3:10, in that day, saith Yahweh, shall he call every man his neighbor under the vine, under the fig tree. He's going to call every man, every single man. And he's going to redeem them. But I hear him calling from beyond the rivers of Cush. That's Ethiopia. That's Sudan. That's southern Egypt. He's calling. He says, these are my suppliants. You see, I'm reading from Zephaniah 3 and verse 10. Even the daughter of my dispersed shall bring my offering. He says they will bring mine offering. Wow. Why? Because they are the people who the world has mocked and has placed a stigma on them because of their coloration. Oh, yes. And now the avenger of blood is about to come, and he's going to visit all those nations that have held his people in captivity called slavery. He's going to avenge them. No one gets away with anything. And so when you look around the world and you see people are coming together to change their prime minister, to change their president, to change their chancellors of exchequer, you could change all you want. Revelation 14 tells us this everlasting gospel of the kingdom must be preached to all the world. It's everlasting because it has survived all the changes. The gospel doesn't change, but we have changed. Once upon a time, adultery was adultery. It's now extramarital affair. Once upon a time, two men coming together, Yah said that's an abomination. We said, oh, it's okay. And what intrigues me above everything else as I speak is simply this. The judge of all the earth, Yahweh, he says, way back in Genesis, he called Adam, he says, you leave and cleave to your wife. Genesis 2:24, for this cause must a man leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. It can't be any clearer than that. And the two become one. Is that what he said? That's the supreme judge of all the earth. But America took that notion, that idea, that statute, that commandment, and brought it, appealed to a lower court, which they call their Supreme Court. And on the 26th of June, 2050, they said, we're no longer under Yah. By implication, they said it's all right for two men to be accepted in this nation as man and wife. Can you get it? Is inexplicable. How can you undo what the divine judge of all the earth has done? And you expect to get away with it? Come on, Uncle Sam, you're behaving like a knave. And so the avenger of blood is coming. Let's close this part of it. Come with me to the book of Numbers, chapter 35. Numbers chapter 35. And hear what Yah has to say. Let's start at verse 19. The blood redeemer, the who? The blood redeemer, he shall put to death the manslayer. When he lighted upon him, he shall put him to death. Or if with 8 he shall thrust at him or hurt at him designedly, and he have died. Did you get that? Let me read it from another translation. The revenger of blood himself shall slay the murderer. How many of our people suffered this way? How many people have suffered this way, of all cultures? When he meeteth him, he shall slay him, but if he thrust him of hatred, or hurl at him by laying of weight, that he die, or in enmity smite him with his hand, that he die, he that smote him shall surely be put to death, for he is a murderer. The revenger of blood shall slay the murderer when he meeteth him. What we're seeing happening in the world is that Yah is using human instrumentalities to do his work. He's a revenger of blood. Too many innocent people have died throughout the world, where men in shirt and tie, noblemen, present themselves as if they're innocent. Yah said, I've known it all. It's in my book. I know your works. I know it. Repent. because you don't know the day of your visitation. And so when we see things happen in various countries, let us not get all surprised. It's in the word. He said, I took note. I did not forget. I don't change. I'm the same yesterday. I'm the same today, and I'll be the same forever. That's why my gospel is everlasting. It survives all the changing. You don't adapt the gospel to meet the people's need. The people must adapt themselves to meet the call of the gospel, which is righteousness. Find a place in our years that have long been delinquent. May we hear him, because he that has an ear, what was he saying last Sabbath? He that hath an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit said. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.